Carcass Crawler is the official Old School Essentials zine. I have issue 3 here in front of us today. It includes Beastmaster, Dragonborn, Mutoid, Mycelian, Tiefling, race and class options, expanded adventuring gear options to add to your game, weapons and armor, and then also rules for creating your own monsters, which is very helpful. So let's get right into it. But before we go any further, 90% of my audience actually isn't subscribed to the channel. So if you enjoy RPGs, I would really appreciate if you consider subscribing. And a hearty thank you and heartfelt hello to all of my new subscribers and all the new paladins joining the community here. We're going to have to come up with a name. Maybe the Paladin Order or something like that. But yeah, let's get into it. As always, we have our welcome introduction here. Welcome to issue 3 of Carcass Crawler, the official Old School Essential zine. We have some awesome Hellboy-esque art here of the mycelian mushroom people, as well as some really awesome kinetic powers on display here. Looks like a monk or something. And of course, all of this is compatible with any of your RPGs that you're playing at the table. Not just Old School Essentials. So new classes and races. This is really exciting. Probably my favorite part of this issue, especially the Dragonborn and the Tiefling. I started playing D&D at 5th edition, and so to me, Dragonborn and Tiefling have always been classic parts of Dungeons and Dragons for me. And so not having them around as options for Old School Essentials or other old school role-playing games that I've been more into now was a bit of a bummer. But now I don't have to worry about that, and I've really enjoyed using them at the table. And of course, if there's too many options, just remember, you don't need to use it. All of this is modular. You can pick and choose what you use and what you don't. So here we have the Beastmaster, of course, here with a Black Panther, perhaps named Guinevere. But yeah, this is your very... Beastmasters are adventurers with special connections to animals. They're often accompanied by one or more loyal beasts. This is a pretty popular archetype, and so if you have a player that wants to... have a, it's basically a ranger that can also have an animal companion. And if that's something that your players are into, you have options for it. And it's a fun time. So why not? Dragonborn. Look at this art. I think this is probably my favorite depiction of a Dragonborn ever. I'm not sure the name of the artist who contributed here. If any of you guys know, please let me know down in the comments below because I love it. And then also this depiction of the breath weapon down here is just, it's so rad, man. I love Dragonborn. Full disclosure, they're probably my favorite race in D&D. I've played a Dragonborn Paladin back in the day and loved him. And they're lots and lots of fun. And what Gavin has done here very effectively is taken the essence of the Dragonborn, taken what makes them so fun, and everything that I love about them, and then condense it down. So, Dragonborn are tall, powerful demi-humans with scaled skin and dragon-like heads. They typically weigh about 250 pounds and stand around 6 feet tall. As reptiles, they reproduce by laying eggs. Unlike true dragons, Dragonborn do not have wings or tails. The tail thing is debatable these days. Dragonborn live in clans based on the color of their scales. See draconic bloodlines, which is very evocative of the flavor of D&D. And they have a love of hoarding gold, like treasures, or like dragons do. It is believed the Dragonborn were created by the dragon gods. So yeah, anyway, you can flavor Dragonborn however you want in your world, but essentially they are a dragon human-like race, and they have a breath weapon attack based on the color dragon they are. So of course, if you're a black Dragonborn, then you have acid breath, just like black dragons have acid breath. And if you're a blue dragon, you have lightning, which is so cool. Green poison, red fire, and white cold, like cone of cold. And then they have draconic resistance, +2 bonus saving throws against the type of damage associated with them, which makes a lot of sense. And then they basically, typical things that would affect dragons also affect Dragonborn. And their scales give them +1 bonus to armor class. I love Dragonborn. So much fun. Highly recommend you give them a check, or give them a chance. Here we have the Mutoids, demi-humans with mismatched body parts of many different creatures like reptiles, crustaceans, birds, mammals, etc. Look at that guy. He's having a bad time. Each individual has unique appearances. Mutoids are often shunned by other species, which is kind of sad, and live in ruins or in lairs within large settlements. I feel like if you were playing like, this is, to me, it's like mutants. This is like post-apoc. If that's what you're into, go for it. I don't personally use Mutoids in my own games just because they don't really fit the flavor. They have backstab, they have thief-like abilities, but I could see this being a lot of fun, especially for playing like an 80s Mad Max style campaign. That's where I really like. Dark Sun is where I see Mutoids shining. Mycelium, on the other hand, I love the Underdark, as some of you might be able to tell by my tattoos. So the Mutoid, or I'm sorry, the Mycelium here is an awesome class. They are sentient mushroom beings that communicate telepathically. They don't have any mouths, as you can see here. And they are so cool. I think especially if you are sending your players to the Underdark, or your players are interested in exploring the Underdark or similar environments, definitely incorporate some myceliums into your game. They use fungal spores. They have this ability that can have hallucinogenic effects on their targets. You roll a d6 on this table. I love it. OSC, always with the random tables. You never know what's going to happen. Even the GM, you never know what's going to happen until it does. But they might flee in terror, cower and babble, or attempt to kill the nearest creature. So you can actually have them turn. You can have your enemies turn on each other, playing a mycelium. And then, let's see. After reaching 6th level in Mycelium, they can found a subterranean stronghold that will attract Myceliums from far and wide. Myceliums just get me so excited. I can barely speak. Oh, and then there's also a fungal zombie stat block here. Okay, and here we have Tieflings, probably my second favorite race in D&D. Okay, besides goblins. Okay, I have a lot of favorite races, alright, but I like Tieflings a lot too. Tieflings are humans, okay, so, which I always find interesting. It also says they're a demi-human class. I feel like that conflicts a little bit, but perhaps I'm overthinking it here. But Tieflings are humans with mysterious fiendish ancestry. They tend to be outcasts living on the fringes of society, shunned by those who fear their heritage. So again, if you have, or your kids, or your friends, or your family has seen D&D Honor Among Thieves, the movie that's out right now, there's a Tiefling featured very prominently in the movie, and now we have the option to play them in OSE smoothly and easily. They have fiendish gifts because they, as we saw here, they're descendants of demons as well as humans. So basically you can roll a d10, or you could just let your player choose, and they get either they can cast spells like Magic Missile or Detect Magic, Detect Invisible, Darkness, some pretty powerful spells here, to be honest with you. Or save, boost against saves, which is more situational, but in OSE could always be a matter of life and death. Tieflings are invulnerable to damage by holy water, which is interesting as well. Really up to the GM to make that relevant, but I could see that being really interesting in certain campaigns. Infravision, of course. And then Tieflings also have these skills like Beguile. On a successful check, the Tiefling words take on supernatural potency. A person of hit dice no greater than the Tiefling's level must save versus spells or believe the Tiefling's words. So they can essentially charm, hear noise, hide in shadows. And then also, to help you describe Tieflings in your world, or help a player describe what their character looks like, you can also roll a d10, maybe a few times even, on this charts, and see what cosmetic traits your Tiefling has that really gives away to society that they are not fully human. They have been touched by their fiendish ancestors. Pause. Anyway. So yeah, they could have a forked tongue, they could have fangs, black or red eyes, etc. And then again, I really enjoy the art. I love this depiction of Tieflings. Here we have the Dragonborn race and the Mutoid race, if you're doing race and class separately. Dragonborn Paladin, excellent combination, but they could be any of these classes. A Dragonborn Thief could definitely be really interesting as well, I could see. Mutoid here as well. The Mycelium and the Tieflings. So I'm sure you guys can tell. Also, amazing art for the Tiefling and the Mycelium. I mean, they knock it out of the park with the art for these products. And again, if you were using race and class separately, here you go. I love, by the way, that like in 5e D&D, the sections and everything for races, they're so much longer and more bloated. But everything that you need to know about playing a Tiefling is right here on this one page. And to some that might feel limiting, but to others like myself, it's actually liberating, I would say, because there's not a lot to get caught up on, and it really allows your imagination to run wild, which is my favorite part about playing these games. Now we have expanded equipment by Gavin. So basically this is just more equipment, more options. Some of them, it's like instrumental. So again, this issue is super worth it in my opinion, not only for the new races, but for the additional gear as well. So for example, I'm trying to see, like chalk, my players have used chalk in some pretty amazing ways. Cooking pots, I mean a lot of this too, like you could just come up on your own, like fishing rod and tackle, holy symbols. You have the charts here, ink, sledgehammer, spade, shovel, could be incredibly useful to the resourceful player. Vials, whistles, again, could be amazing. And then of course, you can just look up the descriptions to help you describe to your players what they do. And now we have more weapons and armor. Just some classic stuff here that I would definitely recommend using. I mean, why not? Bastard sword. Everyone loves a good bastard sword. I've never met a player that doesn't want to use a bastard sword. I gave my players net and bolasses, and they have wreaked havoc with the net. Let me tell you. So, again, seemingly simple things like using a net can have such a big impact on the table and can be so much fun to use. When your players are really in the right mindset and feeling clever and resourceful and creative. I've had a blast using a lot of these additions here, so highly recommended. And here we have some creepy, spooky woodland monsters by Don Stroud. So in deep shadowed glades and sacred groves of ancient forests there dwell many strange creatures unknown to the folk of civilized land. This article presents a collection of some inhabitants of these tangled domains. The art is amazing, and Gavin Norman is releasing a new game called Dolmenwood. It originally started as a new setting for Old School Essentials, but I believe since the OGL scandal and debacle, Gavin decided to make it his own game, which, here. But this definitely gives me that kind of vibe. Dolmenwood is like a hex crawl setting, and I run a hex crawl West Marches as well. So I could definitely see these monsters being super useful if you enjoy outdoors exploration. I mean, look at this nettle skull, the art for the nettle skull spider. I mean, how intimidating and creepy would that be for your players to stumble upon and have to deal with? Mobile carnivorous plant monsters that inhabit humanoid skulls. The stinging, scrambling fronds sprouting out of the eyes, nose, and mouth of the skull give the monster the appearance of a green-legged spider, greatly feared for their ability to inject virulent spores into the skulls of vertebrates. Some Last of Us vibes there. The Spellcroaker. Spellcroaker tadpole. Stick children. Could be spooky for sure. And then finally, again, I have to say, I love this comic booky art of, perhaps this necromancer here with his army of undead soldiers. So cool. I could look at this stuff all day. And here we have an incredibly useful and invaluable article written by Gavin, the man himself, about how to create your own monsters. And probably, I think what I love most about this section is he starts off by saying, like, hey, reskin monsters, or tweak them slightly. There's no need for us as at-home hobbyist GMs to, I mean, by all means, I enjoy it, and I know a lot of others do as well. But sometimes I also just slap some new flavor on top of a monster that already exists, and it can be incredibly effective. And then beyond that, your first step really is to imagine. I love that. As a creator, I think that's something that we can all learn from and embrace, is to not overthink things. I think it's so easy to get in our head as GMs and as creators and as storytellers, right? And so having these steps to walk through is awesome. It kind of just helps keep the creative process tight. And I really appreciate that. Movement rate. Eyeball with some legs. Examples of special abilities. Poison, regeneration, swallow. Can always be fun. And that's it. I think here, yep. We've got the open game license. God bless America and God bless Wizards of the Coast for keeping that game license alive. Thank you. Alright guys, and that's it. That's my review of Carcass Crawler issue 3. I definitely recommend picking it up. I know that I have access to the physical copy right now because I backed the most recent Kickstarter. I believe they'll be selling them soon, and they're available online, I do believe. I'll put the links down below. I'm not sponsored, but Gavin, if you see this and you want to sponsor the channel, by all means, I would love to. And yeah, highly recommend picking it up, and I highly recommend that you consider subscribing to the channel if you love RPGs and you're on a journey to become a better storyteller like I am. And if you have subscribed, if you're new around here, thank you guys so much. I've had a ton of fun replying to your comments and engaging with you guys. The outburst of engagement recently has been so much fun to be a part of, and I can't wait to keep seeing this community grow and see where we get. So thanks again, guys. Thank you so much. Continue having fun at the table with your friends and venture forth.